Hi guys, welcome back. I'm starting to think that an intervention may be warranted here. I have now gone ahead and bought another guitar that is not made for my style of playing. And my style of playing is left-handed. But I just couldn't say no to this one. It was a fair deal. It's a 1986 FG 445 Yamaha. So with it being 1986, it has the Flying Dove motif on the headstock. So as you can tell, it's been in storage for a while. It's rather dusty. We're going to go over it today and try and do a setup. We found that the action at the 12th is very high. We're talking 2.5 millimeters to 3 millimeters. I've looked down the neck and there's a bit of a bow that we can maybe take out. The bridge or the saddle has already been shaved down pretty low. I'm not sure if this is going to need a neck reset or anything. We're going to have to take a look at that and kind of decide where we go from here. From what I can tell, I can't find very much online regarding the F445. I have been told that it's possibly a laminated top, although it carries the S signification, whatever that means, and we're going to dig into that a little more as we get along. But I might, if this is a lower end one, although it is pretty rare, I might remove the nut, save it, but remove it. I have a spare left-handed nut that I'm going to put in there, and then we'll look at the bridge saddle setup. This one has a fair good angle on it. So intonation is probably going to be an issue when it gets restrung. Trying to decide on where to go with that. As I say, we'll look at that as we go down the line. But either way, just picked it up last night. So let's take a look over it, see what we have, see what we can do about the setup. The fret ends seem okay. They could use a little bit of a cleaning and filing at the edges. There's some sharp edges. There's a pretty good angle on it, so it's not really pronounced very deeply, but why not? It's what we do here. So off to the bench. So as I stated, the action at the 12th is like 3 to 3.25 millimeters right across the board. So we have to address that first. Of course, when we do any setup in that, we're going to leave the old strings on because we're going to be probably loosening and tightening and loosening and tightening them a few times. So if we're going to break a string, let's break the old ones. And the first order of business is to remove this strap, which is definitely made out of grandma's night dress. So let's toss this old girl up on the bench and see what we're working with. So I've put my straight edge on top of the bridge here and up onto the neck. And when you put it just on the frets, it touches. So I brought it up on top and measured what kind of a gap we have right here between the bottom of my straight edge and the frets. And it's about 2 millimeters. So that's a lot. We're going to first off try and adjust the truss rod, see if we can flatten out this neck and just see how much we can gain from that. I'm having a feeling it's not going to be enough. People keep saying you don't adjust the action height with the truss rod, blah blah blah, yeah. It will fine tune. If you get it really close, you drop this here neck, it's going to lower the action a little bit, not much, a little bit. So we're going to take a look at that first and see what the truss rod adjustment is going to do to lower the action. When doing setups, of course, I've told you this before, listen this time, because I've done it myself. Loosen off the skinny strings first, because there's a lot of pressure on them. And if you take the big, heavy, strong strings and take the weight off of them, it's going to put a lot more tension on the skinny strings, and that's where you're going to most likely break a string. So loosen the skinny strings first. And while you're loosening them, take note of how the machine heads go. Are they smooth? Are they loose? That one might be a little loose. We'll have to look at that as we go along. Keep all these things in mind when you're doing this. So with this version of guitar, the 6-sided shaped adjustment tool, not a paid promotion, is inside the sound hole. You will find them inside the sound hole, or you will find them up on the end of the neck, right underneath the nut. Something that I'm kind of happy to see is that this has absolutely no tension on it whatsoever. So there is a good chance that I might be able to adjust this, tightening it down enough to take up a lot of that extra movement. We want to tighten the truss rod adjustment to lower the action. What we usually do, if you're trying to do an adjustment on this, you want to just like make a quarter turn, bring it up to tension, and check it again. But this is so far out, we have to do a bunch of turns, and with there being absolutely no tension on that truss rod at all, hopefully that was the issue. What is a truss rod adjustment, you ask? So this is a professional artist's rendition of a guitar and the truss rod system. Now this is the side view of the neck, and of course the top view of the neck. The truss rod is a metal beam that goes down, buried inside, right down the middle of the neck, inside there, with a bow to it. And the truss rod adjustment, which is in this one down in the sound hole, as I said, some are up here in the headstock. As you tighten that, that's going to pull up on this beam. It's going to want to make this beam shorter. So it pulls up on the beam, which in turn pushes down on the headstock. Now you want a little bit of bow in the neck, but very little. This one has a lot because it was not tightened at all. So we are going to tighten the truss rod and hopefully bring the headstock down, and hence lower the action here. Yes, I know you're not supposed to lower the action with the truss rod, but believe me, it will make a difference. So now I've made a fairly substantial tightening of the truss rod. I'm guessing at about 2 complete turns. So now we're going to bring this guitar back up to tension, and we don't have to make it into exact tune. Just get it into rough tune, because we're going to be loosening and tightening. There's no use in me spending 5-10 minutes getting it into perfect tune every time. Get the bottom one into tune and then just earball it from there on up. So there, just need it into rough tune. Let's check again at the 12th. 2 millimeters, 2.5, 2.25, 2.5, 2.5, 2.25. So there, we've already lowered the action at the 12th over a millimeter just by tightening the truss rod, which will not adjust your action height whatsoever at the 12th. Yeah, okay, so let's take the next look and see where we're going to go from here. We've got it down to a playable spot. We're going to take a look down the headstock here at the neck and see how we could literally come down a little bit more. And as I say, the saddle's already fairly low, so it's pretty straight, but I think we could drop that another 1/4 of a millimeter with the truss rod adjustment. So I'm going to go through the hassle of loose skinny strings first, giving that about another 1/4 turn or so, and then we'll bring it back up to rough tune and check the action again. And with another 1/4 turn, we're at a little less than 2, maybe a bit more than 2, 2, 2 1/4, 2 to 2 1/4, 2. Okay, so the thicker, more full body strings, you can have a little higher action on them, because what we're trying to do is just keep from the oscillation from tagging the frets. Once you get down into the skinny ones, you have a little more leeway that way. So the next thing we do now is go over every note and make sure we get no buzzing anywhere. And do that for every string all the way up. I just usually stop at the 12th, but because I don't play up in here very often, so buzzing up in there isn't going to matter. Go over every other fret and make sure you get no buzzing. So we have no buzzing anywhere along there at all. We're getting good, clear, true tones on each one. So now let's go over the basic setup. We've got the problem area figured out. Let's go over all the other adjustments and the measurements, see where we're sitting. So first off, we're going to check the nut. To do that, if you don't have feeler gauges in that, get your capo, put it on the 3rd fret. What you want is just a little bit of gap between the string and the 1st fret. If you tap it, you should hear that piano-y type tick, 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 tick. Don't know if that'll pick up on the microphone, but I can hear it. So if you don't hear it at all, then you know that it's making contact, and that is a little bit low. So if you do have feeler gauges, what you want is the 2 thickest strings to spread at about 0.020 of an inch, and then the second 2 at 0.018 and the skinny 2 at 0.016. So let's just double check that and see. At the large, those 2 could actually come down a little bit, but they are more than accurate enough for what we want to do. Now the middle 2 strings, they're pretty much touching, so that's good. And the skinny 2 strings, there's a little bit of a gap. This second one that was a little bit higher than the other ones, we could literally go in there and shave down that nut a little bit to make them even. And well, let's just take a closer look at them and see. We might be able to just file down the holes in here. I can feel the strings sticking out, so that's good. These bottom 2 should be pretty much level, and that one there is not. I can feel that. So what I think we'll do is adjust our nuts. So how do you cut a nut, you say? Well, this here professional artist rendition of a nut. The string comes up the fretboard, and it wants to hit this curvature and go down to the tuner head. You want the string to have a slight curve to it at the nut. Now over here, when you're exiting the gap, you want it to flare out a bit on either side, so that because the string doesn't go straight from here straight to the end, it comes in here and then it curves off to the actual tuner. So we're just going to be very careful and make sure that we cut down this middle one just a touch, and hopefully that will bring down the action on this second string to a more acceptable level. So we remove the string from the slot, take our nut cutting tool, which this is not, but it will do for what we want it to do, and just give it a couple light swipes. I didn't see any material come out of there, so we just want to do a little bit, and just by feeling it, that feels a little more flush with the nut. So let's bring it back up and measure it again. So now we have about 175 on the skinniest string, and we're still at about 2 on the second. I'm thinking I'm going to give that a couple of more swipes and see if I can bring it more in line with the 175 I like. And so a couple of more swipes, just light ones, because it did work before. And as you're doing this, roll down a bit just to make that curvature angle in the nut. Now I could see a little bit of material coming off that time. That feels a little more flush. And as I say, I'm just putting it into rough tune, checking it again. 1.75, and that is an even 2. So it could come a couple of more swipes, and so I will. Okay, so we've taken them all to an acceptable level. This largest E could probably come down a little bit, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. It's a little bit high, but I think we're going to leave it for now, get the rest of the setup all done, and see where it sits from there. And now our degree of measurement between the straight edge and the frets is down to 1 to 1.5 millimeters. I'm okay with that, but now we have to look down the rest of the fretboard and see how level we are there. So we took the straight edge and laid it down the neck, and you want to have just a little bit of gap in the middle here. There wasn't any. This is pretty much flat. It's just touching the frets in the middle. Take your straight edge, go right up to the nut, but on the frets themselves all the way along. And between the 12th and the 1st fret, I can feel that it's dragging a little bit, but not too bad. And I've gone over every note, and I still have no buzzing anywhere along any of them. So it's in the sweet spot, let's say. There should be a little bit more bow, but we are in an acceptable area. Yes, 175 to 2 millimeters at the 12th is where we're going to leave it. So next, what do? Let's get these strings off of here and give it a good cleaning and check out the frets for wear. So the first thing I'm going to do is take off all the extra coils at the top. I don't see why people leave these on, but whatever. I was going to say it's not my guitar, but it is. It just wasn't me who strung it last. What I would rather do is always keep the waste in one piece so that you don't create more dangerous, sharp little coils of wire for wildlife and stuff. But yeah, okay. Remove the strings. Now it doesn't matter which one you remove first, because if you break one of these, well, I guess it does kind of matter, because we don't want to create more waste than we have to. So always loosen, skinny strings first, yada yada yada. And this here tuner is way too loose. These ones don't have the little Phillips screw on the end for tightening against the little grommet in there, so these might require replacing eventually, but we're going to leave them for now. They work. And so we keep all 6 strings together, make a little coil. What I've done was taken the little end coils and slid them over it first. Make yourself a good sized ring, roll it down to the end, and then just up through the bottom for all the rest of them, trying to keep all of these in their one spot. That way you end up with just one coil of crud, of waste. Take them back to the guitar shop that you get your strings at and tell them you'd like them to recycle it. If they say they don't recycle it, shame them into it. Either way we go about it, you want as few pieces of crap as possible. Recycle. So the next order of business is going to be cleanup. I'm going to dust it all off, give it a good cleaning. You know how to do that. You don't have to watch me do it. So something else I noticed was every one of these machine head screws were loose. So I'm going to get out my miniature Phillips screwdriver. These are those precision screwdrivers where the knob at the end twists separate from the rest. That is so that you can use one hand, use one for tension on the top while still screwing with your fingers, so to speak. I would recommend getting these little precision ones. Now, that one might be stripped, which means we might have to do the old toothpick trick with that one. But every one of them took at least 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn to tighten down. This is one of the little maintenance things that many people neglect to do. You want that pressure on there so that you don't strip the head of the screw, because they are very small and blah blah blah. Be careful. So now all these ones are tight, and let's take another look at that one that might be stripped and see if we need to perform the toothpick trick. And that was this one here. Yes. So what we're going to do is remove this here screw and do the toothpick trick. And my apologies if this is too close for the focus, but loosen off the screw, take a magnet, put it on that screw so that once it comes out of the guitar, it doesn't go anywhere. And then we take a toothpick, push it down in the hole, create a little bit of an end. It goes down in the hole. Then we reinstall the screw, and that should take up the extra room where that was stripped. Inspect the screw itself first off. There's a little bare collar at the end where there's no threads. I've did a change of machine heads on one of my other Yamahas, and they did have different threads on them, so the screws. So I reused the old ones because the headstock itself should have threads designed for the specific screws. And let's tighten it down again. And then we found another one that is stripped. So once again, do the exact same thing. Fill up the hole, and then reinstall the screw, which will now sit tight. Now when you're going around, what I did here when I was tightening up all the other ones, just keep the same amount of tension on each one as you're going around. Use your wrist as a torque wrench. You know how much pressure you use to tighten it down, so two of them were loose, like stripped. They were all loose. So as I say, you just use the same amount of pressure on all of them as you're going along. Now there's a little bit of play in the paddles, but oh well. Now let's clean up the rest of the guitar. So when looking over the tuners, they're all nice and tight, except this one is rather loose. Now we did a tuning head replacement on one of my other FGs, so I think what we're going to do is, we've got some spare parts. Let's take that apart and see if we can fix it. So what we're going to do is cautiously remove the screws, keeping our magnet handy to catch anything that falls. Come on, just come out of there. One screwy wooey. Two screwy wooies. Then let's remove the machine head. Now the machine head has a metal cover on this side, which should come off. Let's make sure that we are looking at it properly and we don't bend or break anything when we take it off, because the back plates to the ones that we have in reserve are a different configuration, but they are the same bolt pattern. So let's take this apart and see if we can get inside it. So there's a little gap right in there. Not sure if you can see that or not, but I'm just taking a little straight blade and I'm pry, and the outer cover won't come off. It won't come off. And with great caution, you remove the back plate. So that's basically what's inside the spindle, which has threads across there, little brass gear that when you turn this, it turns the head. So this just is a little bit sloppy. So we're going to take one of the ones that was from our old set, and this particular one was sloppy, but we're going to find one that is the right orientation because they will have different mountings for the different sides of the headstock. So we've got a possibility of 3 of this style that might be tighter and we might be able to get parts off of. And so these 3 are the same orientation. That one's a little bit loose, so let's put it aside. That one's not bad, just a little bit. I believe this one tends to be our most secure. So we will remove the cover off of it and have a look inside to see what it is that we can replace. It's still a little sloppy, but it's got the same. It's better than this one. No, maybe not. Okay, time to inspect closely. So we've ruled out these 2. This is the one with the slightest amount of give at it at all. So this is going to be the donor. This is the original. We're going to switch some parts out and just put it together and check it, see if it works or not. So the basic makeup of these things are there's a circular spindle on here, brass gear, and screw that holds the brass gear on. So we're going to remove that. Voila. And then the spindle and parts apart. Old one. This is what we're going to do. We're going to take those 2 U-shaped things and pinch them together a bit and see if that is our issue, because I believe it is. So we will take our needle nose, give these just the slightest of pinch, because if you pinch them too much, you're gonna slow down the turning. We got to keep the gap right. Okay, I'm gonna make you guys wait for a bit while I do this, because this is gonna be a little more tricky than I thought. So your top tip of the day is don't F with the tuners. You're just gonna make it worse, and that's what I've done. This one was bad to begin with, but I've really messed it up. So I'm figuring that I'm gonna have to either, I know a person who has spare parts. I'm gonna see if they might have one of these, but if not, I might have to redo all the tuners. Well, this one seems to be maybe becoming, maybe I've just grinded off all the bad things I've done to it. No, it's way too tight, and then it goes really loose, and then once it gets around again to the other side, I think it goes way too tight again. So yeah, don't F with the tuners. On top of that, these were 2 different types. I said I had another set. The 2 grooves in the bracket that holds the actual tuner are different widths, so I couldn't use the bracket off of the one on the others. I would have to replace, and I might just end up doing that, is putting those other tuners on the whole thing. I don't know. Either way, don't F with the tuners. They've been machined perfectly, and they wear a little bit and then you mess it up a lot of it. So for the rest of the day, I think we're going to polish the frets. Frets are rather tarnished, so we're going to tape off the neck and polish them. And then maybe this afternoon go out and get a new set of tuners. After this message, I'll be right back. The more you know. In other news, Ping P2942s, 2642s, not a paid promotion, but cheapest ones that they have that'll fit. So, yeah, ruined those other ones, but it looked like they had to be done anyways because the one was done. It's got a lot of use on it. The other ones were just going to go soon too. So let's peel these out of the nightmare that we call packaging. You know, you really should not do that. Put them in a little cardboard box. It decomposes. Plastic. Back when I get them peeled. So don't be like me. Well, learn from my mistakes. I obviously should not have been starting to mess with this before I thought about it, but I ruined one tuner. There's a few other that aren't that good anyways, but anyways, on with the new tuners. It was going to need it obviously because the first one already had it. Yeah, I said that, right? Maybe I'll cut that part. Maybe not. On with the new ones. So, be careful about what you do with your tuners, but I only ruined one. I got a bunch of spare parts now. Now I got to remember to go through these and throw out the ones that are literally not any good anymore. Now the ferrules don't have to be changed because they are the same diameter of hole in the middle, and as long as the spike comes up through, that's all we need. No use in doing that. So we take one of the old tuners and one of the new tuners, and we want to measure PPs. So the easiest way to do it is to put them this way up against each other, and I can see that the old tuners are about a millimeter, maybe a millimeter and a half shorter. So this comes up through farther. Works for me. All right, flip it over and install. Now the coloring sucks, but those ferrules I was talking about, here's the other reason you don't bother changing them. The new ones are a thinner diameter, and I learned that the first time I changed those other, my spares that I've thrown away now. I did it when I was changing them in. So don't bother messing with the ferrules if you don't have to. And line them up. Now the screws are different. The old screws had a bigger collar on them, and the shorter ones didn't. The older ones also had a larger thread. So I'd rather have the larger thread. So we're going to reuse the old ones, and if we have to, then we'll do the toothpick trick on the holes. So when you first put the screws in, put them all in and just sink them. Do not tighten them, because we want to go over at the end and make sure they all have the same amount of torque basically. And if we have to, we'll do the toothpick trick too. And so now at the end, this is when we go around and make sure we get the same amount of tension on each one, and that one is stripped. That one needs the toothpick trick. And so we remove the screw, insert the little wooden piece of toothpick. Let's jam it in a bit with the screwdriver, and then the screw goes back in, and that piece of toothpick will take up all the extra room in there and create a brand new seal. Might be a little hard to get started because they're hardwood toothpick. There we go. And that will snug up. And what you want to do is get the same amount of pressure on each one. And so now you go over all the tuners, give them a little twist, make sure that they work okay. It'll take a little bit for some of them to get worked in, but overall they're good. Let's clean up the fretboard, and then we gotta tape it off and do the polishing like we said about 100 years ago. Tape next. I hate taping. So you tape off up both sides of the neck, keeping the bottom of that tape just level with the bottom of the frets. Then you cut off pieces that are just long enough to reach side to side on the neck, and tape off anything that is not fret. Make sure that you don't get so much of a tail that it goes below this other tape. A little bit's not bad, but don't wrap it right around. Get so far down that the tape is wider than the fret, just tape on the one side, pull the other side up, take a knife and slice off the excess, and you have a straight edge to go on the other side, and just let the center overlap. Take two. And if you're wondering why we do all this, this is why. Just slightly tarnished, but we can fix that. And so that is where things went bad. The camera, well, we're going to leave it there for this week. Thanks for watching. Please share, like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Tell me what I did right, did wrong. I know I do things wrong, and I've done things wrong, and I'm going to do more things wrong tomorrow. Believe me. But anyways, thanks for watching. Share, like, subscribe. Remember, I'm not a luthier, just an old guy with too much time on my hands.